Wids. A lot of really popular names in there, some names that we have not yet seen on stream. Confident guy, he's a good player. Even Paladin versus Odd Paladin. Even Paladin has Wild Pyromancer, Even Paladin has Consecration. Saiyan's probably pretty happy about that.
Yeah, I definitely think Saiyan's happy with this queue. I thought Odd Paladin was... It's one of the weaker decks in Galen's lineup against Saiyan, so I think Galen led it, just saying, you know what, if it loses one of its games, I'm not entirely worried about it. It would be a pretty decent counter queue into the Death Rattle Hunter, but the Odd Paladin is definitely going to be unfavored into Even Warlock and Even Paladin, so I think this was Galen's weakest deck. I think he's happy to try and get it out of the way, get a quick early win in.
This is this is the sacrifice pick. If there's a deck that you know it's going to be really difficult for you to get a win with, you throw it out there as a sacrifice, but then you know I can beat this deck with my next pick, and just one of my better decks has to win 2 in a row. You're at a disadvantage, but then on the flip side, if Galen wins this matchup, he's at a big advantage.
If Galen wins this one, the best counter queue up for Saiyan is going to be Even Warlock. But as we can see, we see a couple tools in the hand for Saiyan that's going to be a big impact on this matchup. That Consecration that you were mentioning earlier. Although I think you need a little bit more than just that. The Corpse Taker is not a bad draw. A lot of times, Corpse Taker into Blessings of Kings is a win condition in and of itself. That thing pushes 14 damage on the following turn if you don't have the Wind Fury Harpy in hand.
Yeah, it's dang hard for an Odd Paladin to deal with early unless they've got a board and an unidentified maul, maybe, or something with a Blessing of Might onto it.
Requires a lot of trades from the Silverhand recruits. Galen's going to be maximizing his hero power as much as possible, especially with that level up in hand. He wants to really make sure that he gets a hero power down each and every single turn he can. That's one of the things that, you know, maybe a lot of Odd Paladin players at home, they don't necessarily see. Your hero power every turn, you know, you built the deck for a reason. You put Baku in your Odd Paladin for a reason, and it's for those 2 Silverhand recruits that you want to put out every turn.
Yeah, you built the deck to abuse that hero power. Any turn that you can hit the button, in this matchup in particular, because Saiyan has premium sources of removal that once they're gone, then you can start to throw more of the minions from your hand onto the board and really capitalize on the fact that you've baited the removal like Consecration and Pyromancer early.
Let me ask you, Cora. If you built an Odd Warrior, are you hitting the button?
Yes, I'm hitting the button. If
What's
I'm building an Odd
between
Warrior,
Odd Paladin and an Odd Warrior?
Oh,
if you built Odd Hunter, are you hitting the button?
Yes. It's a Frostbolt every turn.
This is 2/3 of Frostbolt.
If I'm playing Odd Paladin, though, am I running my minion into the Amani Berserker to activate it? I don't know about that. This sets up for Raid Leader to come down and trade over a minion. Why do you think that Galen made that trade? Just putting a 1/1 into the Amani Berserker.
I'm trying to rationalize it right now. The reason I can think that he did it is he wanted the board space in order to hero power on the following turn.
He can make the trades next turn.
But
he's very likely going to have to make trades next turn.
That tells me that he plans on going Righteous Protector Raid Leader. That way the 5/2 will have to go into the Raid Leader. But it looks like he's not even going for that. I'm not entirely certain. I think it was maybe hedging his bets around the Consecration from the coin.
Sure.
So I definitely think it was a nod to that. And it does turn out a little bit better for him. He takes a little bit more damage, but a lot of the times it's not that.
Damage is inconsequential
Exactly, here. Especially in this matchup.
Saiyan's going to win by completely taking the board. Galen's going to win by killing Saiyan before he even has access to Avenging Wraths for lethal. Well, we'll see if that trade over makes a huge impact. Could have just been a nod to the Raid Leader again, but every turn that you can hit the button, Galen's going to want to hit the button. Corpse Taker comes down, and Galen has a clear with Raid Leader plus hero power, which he's much more likely to use here than the level up. You really want this level up to get as much value as it can.
Definitely want to hit that hero power every single turn. Unfortunately, he has to trade the majority of his board here into that.
It's okay.
So
he's setting up for a big bind later on 7.
Made it a little bit awkward, But if plays had planned out differently, then it would have made much more sense. It might have been a nod to something like, it had to have been for Consecration. That's the only thing I can think of in my head. Maybe Wild Pyro coin. I don't even know what you would coin out. There's no 2-mana spell.
It would have to. There would have had to have been a Hydrologist played to get a secret. It was a hedge, for whatever reason, and it worked out fine. And now he's going to set up for level up. Try to build the biggest board of dudes that he possibly can.
Has to commit that trade there. You would like to have the extra Silverhand recruit for the level up, but Spike Ridge Steed is a massive punish.
Yeah, you can't leave a recruit on the board going into turn 6. Odd Paladins aren't playing Iron Beguile anymore, and that's just too much of a wall for Gallon to get through this early. But hero power plus level up here is fantastic.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of any other play that could happen. You could go for Boisterous Bard plus the Void Ripper. There is some merit for getting the Vine Cleaver down now. The only issue with Vine Cleaver is the majority of the time, Saiyan has Ooze in his hand, because I believe there will be 2 Acidic Swamp Ooze in the list.
We can just double check here, but they're absolutely
a lot of the times they have been running 2 Acidic Swamp Oozes.
There's one.
There's one? Okay.
1 Ooze, double Argent Commander, double Avenging Wrath. So a bit of a heavier top end at the sacrifice of only having that 1 copy of Ooze. But Gallon's going to know that. And he's going to know that his Vine Cleaver has a better chance to stick. So maybe that'll influence this turn. Because it is still early in the game. And if the longer you leave the Vine Cleaver in hand, the more likely it is that Saiyan draws the Ooze.
Boisterous Bard plus this.
I mean, you said it, but I kind of wrote it off. Because this seemed just like a beautiful, beautiful level up turn. Gallon saw a Consecration already. He hasn't seen an Equality, but this won't bait anything. This is kind of a weak board now.
I think the main thing Gallon was playing around with that play was Wild Pyromancer plus something like Blessings of Kings. Because if he makes the level up play, he puts all the Silverhand recruits to 1 health, because they will have to take value trades into the chain gangs, and then they will have to hit the 2/2 as well. Is it Argent? No. I'm drawing a blank on that card's name. I have not played that card in forever. I don't even think I drafted an Arena.
Oh, well, you should. It's very good.
I don't play Arenas. That's probably why I don't draft it in Arena.
That makes sense. It's the Argent Protector.
Argent Protector, but if he does that and then Wild Pyromancer Blessings of Kings comes out, that spells a lot of trouble for Gallon. So I really think Gallon is hedging around that specific scenario.
Okay. Champion's Maul's a nice pickup. Gallon does not want to have to hit into this Gen Greymane, but he may be forced to.
Trying to look at what else there could be. I mean, I guess you could get Vine Cleaver down, put the 2/3 in, then take a value trade with the last 1/1, but that doesn't seem like the strongest. You really want to bait the Acidic Swamp Ooze. You believe Saiyan has it in the hand, but the biggest issue with that is there's only 1 Ooze, so it's very unlikely that it's currently in the hand. On top of that, there's no way Saiyan oozes just a 2-attack weapon.
No. If Gallon wants to get the maximum use out of his hero power, though, he should go Champion's Maul this turn. Next turn, he can Vine Cleaver hero power, and that leads into either a Divine Favor or a level up turn.
I wouldn't be surprised to see the Divine Favor just draw 1 here. You're not really getting too much more value out of that.
That is true. Even Paladin doesn't draw any cards. Full clear from Gallon. Again, can't leave anything on the board because Spike Ridge Steed is such a threat. Even still, Hero Power Steed could come down this turn.
Argent Commander. A lot of players have been, I believe, cutting that from the list.
Yeah, Saiyan's doubled up on him. He's got 2.
Got 2. Typically, you get the Divine Shield off of the Crystal Smith.
Yeah, Kangor.
Kangor Crystal Smith, and you also would get the Lifesteal as well. You saw earlier on, Saiyan does not have that in his list. The Corpse Taker did not have Lifesteal.
That is true. He's not running the Crystal Smith Kangor. I actually kind of like that. He's removed the Kangor and instead put in an additional copy of the Argent Commander. Kangor is this recovery mechanic that has the potential to be very powerful, but seems a little bit out of place in this deck to me a lot of the time. It ends up being a 2-mana 1/2 with Divine Shield that doesn't do a whole lot in the late game against decks where you would much rather have just some additional damage, whether it be a second Avenging Wrath or a second Argent Commander or even a Tyrion at the top end. So I kind of like that Saiyan's just decided that it's not worth it.
You saw Saiyan there. He just pushed it face. A lot of times you can afford to do that with this deck. Because what will happen...
13.
Yeah, Gallon's not only at 13, but there's weapons, there's Avenging Wraths, there's just a lot of burst damage that can come from Saiyan's hand. So I don't blame him for just pushing face that turn. Just trying to end this game as quickly as possible. But right now, Saiyan does not have an answer for this 6-minion level up.
That is the best level up that I've seen all tournament.
That's a pretty good one.
Gallon's down to 9.
It's got to be Pyro,
Consecration, or Avenging Wrath.
It's going to be one of those cards, Cora. Or Tempo Terram to try and soak up 3 damage.
Corpse Taker doesn't do it. So Hero Power, Ooze, Terram?
You have to, but we can see the Void Rippers in the hand. That's just going to spell lethal.
Gallon was very patient with his level up this game. He wanted to make it his finisher, and he absolutely did. We're going to see Gallon take game number 1 here up against Saiyan. The Odd Paladin doesn't have the easiest time in this matchup, but it's because Saiyan didn't find Wild Pyromancer that this game was so one-sided.
Yeah, we saw Gallon even playing around the Wild Pyromancer plus Blessings of Kings if he were to have it. And now this is looking pretty strong for Gallon right now. The Odd Paladin, you know, was one of the weak links in the lineup. It was going to be an unfavorable into the Even Paladin and the Even Warlock. And it just took out one of Saiyan's decks.
That is nice. Saiyan's going to counter with the Even Lock here, though, and I've not seen an Odd Paladin beat an Even Lock all weekend, so we can assume that he will win that game. But that then gives Gallon the ability to counter the Even Lock with the Death Rattle Hunter or the Mali Druid, both of which are pretty good. We'd probably see the Death Rattle Hunter in that case, and then Saiyan would have to run into the Mirror with the Death Rattle Hunter, and then a favorable against the Mali Druid. So things are still looking slightly favored for Gallon from here, I would say.
I'd say slightly favored for Gallon. I actually think if he does get that opportunity to do the counter Q, he'll actually go for the Mali Druid into the Even Warlock.
Okay.
Because the way that'll pan out is Mali Druid is typically favored against Even Warlock. And then once you win that matchup, you have a chance at an unfavorable matchup, and then you have a chance at the 50-50 with the Death Rattle Hunter Mirror. Whereas if you do it the other way, and the Death Rattle Hunter were to lose to the Even Warlock, you would then have to guarantee you win the favorable with the Mali Druid into the Even Warlock and have to win an unfavorable with the Mali Druid into the Death Rattle Hunter.
That's the thing about Last Hero Standing. It's quite complicated.
It really is.
Determining which order you want to queue your decks, so far as to queue decks that are intentional sacrifices to try to get better matchups later on, is really difficult, and it's not something that most players have experience with nowadays because LHS has not been the premier Hearthstone format in years now. Dreamhack is pretty much the only place you're going to find it.
We have turned our curse
Saiyan does counter with the Even Lock, double Defile opener.
And he capped him.
A way that Gallon can beat this is Purifier's Maul. But that's only if Saiyan gets a little bit too greedy.
I don't even think this matchup is necessarily that bad for the Odd Paladin, because sometimes if you just stick a mid-range threat down, maybe you just kind of Fungalmancer it, maybe get some Corridor Creepers going on. A lot of times you can just steamroll the game out of control. Obviously, we saw Saiyan double keep, and he has access to both Defiles. But if he didn't have, both Defiles, this game,
could look quite different.
Pretty differently.
There are certainly games where the Warlock doesn't find the removal they need.
The Mukla comes down, burning a giant as well.
All right, this is a particularly sweet matchup for the Mukla. How does Saiyan deal with this, aside from a Vulgar Homunculus this turn into an upgraded Spellstone, or a Defile into a Hellfire just to kill a 5/5?
The funny thing is the bananas help him enable Defiles later on, because he can banana his opponent's minion and then set up a Defile. Obviously, it can't clear the board here, But it's just really funny to think about.
Yeah, Saiyan has to take this Defile here and then set up for either a Hellfire or Spellstone clear onto the King Mukla next turn. It's going to be near impossible for Galen to play around Defile this game just because he doesn't have the liberty of not hero powering for the entire game to put a 1-health minion on the board. So at some point, he's just going to have to go in and stop playing around the removal.
One of the issues with this matchup, however, is it's one of the biggest cases with even Warlock in general, is that you can remove the board constantly, but if you're not developing a threat behind it, eventually your opponent can just kind of swarm you with these minions. For instance, if Saiyan always has to Hellfire, Defile each and every board state that comes out, eventually Galen's just going to be able to generate a board state that Saiyan won't have the removal for. And if he can find that lethal damage and push through, this Mukla has put in a lot of work.
That's
this Mukla has connected once, and then if the Hellfire comes out, it essentially did 8 damage.
And it soaks up a Hellfire that could have been used post-level up. That's where Hooked Reaver tends to come in the later turns. If Saiyan can stick a Hellfire or Defile with a Hooked Reaver behind it, that's where the stability comes from, just because there is no silence in this matchup for Galen.
I think Saiyan is really trying to convince himself to play a minion this turn. And I think he's going to. And the reason I say that is because if he does not play a minion this turn and he just Hellfires, or he does something like Defile with the banana, what'll happen is Galen will just go Hero Power, Corridor Creeper 3-drop, and Saiyan will look at that and go,
what do I do?
What do I do?
Saiyan's at 12. He did not feel safe playing that giant. I would not have either, but he's...
I would have strongly considered it. If you're not playing things onto the board, how are you winning the game?
Hero Power, Corridor Creeper, Raid Leader, exactly like you said, Jace. Now how does Saiyan deal with this? He can Defile, Coin, Spellstone, and the Spellstone heals him for 5. And he just found another Spellstone as well, actually.
Could use that one over it, but like I said, so he clears this board, and then Galen just goes Hero Power, Raid Leader again.
Go?
Go.
Well, and at that point, then, both Defiles are gone, and a Hellfire's gone. And it's turn 6.
The only other removal left would be that second Hellfire and something like... Drawing the blank on names of cards. 6 mana, 6/6. Dread Infernal.
Dread Infernal.
That card that does things.
Don't forget about Dread Infernal.
I would never.
He's a one-of in most of these lists, but he's an important one-of.
He's the one I always forget when I'm playing any kind of deck. It's like, oh, this seems really good. He's out of Defiles. And then that card just comes out, and I'm like, oh, well.
So this is Saiyan holding the Defile.
Tink Master.
That's a Devil Sword. Let's go.
Spark. I did not know Galen was running that. What is he running that for?
I mean, it's not bad in this matchup.
No, I don't think it's that bad at all. I just think it's funny.
We've mostly seen this in Warrior.
Take Master Overspark is one of those cards that you lose to Taunt Druid over and over, so you go into your collection and just put it into your deck because you're tired of losing to that deck.
That's when I put Black Knight in my Shudderwalk Shaman deck and said, Taunt Druid, I'm coming for you. You have nothing.
I'm telling you, that's the card you put in your deck when you've lost the Taunt Druid way too many times.
Many of y'all at home haven't been playing Hearthstone for its entire history. You used to be able to target with Take Master Overspark. You used to be able to choose the minion that you wanted to turn into either a Squirrel or a Devilsaur.
Didn't get to pick what it was.
No, but you got to pick the minion.
But you got to pick the target.
It got hugely nerfed, and it's still niche good. Saiyan picks up Hellfire, but Saiyan is dead with that Hellfire.
This is where I think maybe playing out the Giant earlier just would have allowed pressure. And that's just going to be lethal for Galen.
This was supposed to be a terrible, terrible matchup for Galen, but he's 2-0. Taking down the even Warlock and the even Paladin, 2 decks that should have easily been able to dispatch this odd Paladin. And now that leaves Saiyan with just, well, a situation that Saiyan's been in before. Death Rattle Hunter to complete a very unlikely reverse sweep.
Don't get me started on Saiyan with Death Rattle Hunter. I still remember that game. That was absolutely insane.
I sat there the entire time because I went up on the desk when it was up 2-0 Fino. I was like, this is over. And I sat there the entire time during that Death Rattle
and then we
Hunter
kicked you
Quest
off.
Rogue match, just in shock.
And then we kicked you off because like, hey, there's still more Hearthstone to be played. Shoot.
Shoot, shoot.
Go away. Go away. We're watching the Mona Lisa be painted right now. Just go away.
It was slightly more entertaining than watching paint dry. We'll just put it that way. It was pretty good if you guys didn't see the Dreamhack Montreal finals.
If I could go back in time and watch the Mona Lisa be painted, I still probably wouldn't do it. That's probably boring.
You can just go see it in the Louvre today. Odd Paladin versus Death Rattle Hunter. If Gallon doesn't... Okay, so Saiyan wins this matchup, which is really hard. It's going to require Deathstalker Rexar, very likely a candle shot, a Witchwood Grizzly.
Tech,
yeah, it's hard.
Flanking strike.
But if Saiyan does it, then the Death Rattle Hunter has an even matchup against the Death Rattle Hunter and a fair matchup against Mally Druid. Saiyan's not out of this just yet.
I'm looking at Saiyan's opening hand.
Saiyan might be out of this right now.
Just yet.
This is...
Is there a candle shot off the top?
So...
Gallon's hand, on the other hand, is looking mighty fine.
Here's what I'm gathering from this series. Saiyan put all of his luck into a pile against Fino and said, I really want to keep this streak going. And then against Gallon, he said, not as worried about this one.
Oh, he should have been.
Or maybe he just
Gallon's taking a lead.
Only actually learned how to play Token Druid for this tournament.
Or maybe Saiyan has just lost all of his powers.
I think that's a bit extreme.
Ever since I was talking to Saiyan, and he said ever since Orange County, I actually queued into him at Orange County, and we were both, I'm a caster, so we were both like 0-7 at this point. No, it was more more respectable score than that. But we both were, no contention of top 16.
Okay.
And after that, Saiyan looks at me and he's playing a ladder game. The ladder game is going so rough for him before our match, and he was just like, I don't know, Dr. J. I think I just lost it. Lost the power.
Did he beat you at Orange County?
Yes.
He hasn't lost all the power. He's not a caster just yet. Though he did cast Tespa last weekend.
Or maybe he's a caster now. Maybe him casting Tespa was bad juju.
Nah, I think it just made him hate bad plays even more. It just lit the fire, if anything. Coin Fungalmancer this turn would allow Gallon to get rid of the Wolf and put some pressure on, but I think he'd rather just go wide. There's no level up just yet, but the only punish for overextending is a single mind control tech and Deathstalker Rexar, which can't be played yet.
It'll be interesting to see how Gallon navigates this. We've seen Gallon having a little bit of trouble with this matchup throughout the tournament.
Have we?
Earlier on, we saw Gallon play this matchup against... Can't remember the player's name. It was round 2. It might have been Fino, actually.
Yeah, he played against Fino.
And Fino went for a line of play where he cubed a Spider Bomb and then had Play Dead Shaw on the following turn in order to rush the Spider Bombs into a fully level up board that went face.
Oh.
Where there was some argument for killing the Spider Bomb, and if you had, then that would have never been a scenario.
3-7 taunt. Gallon does have to go through it the hard way, but he can Fungalmancer up the Corridor Creeper and the Flame Elemental, which doesn't die when trading in.
The one thing Gallon has to strongly consider, however, is how this is going to look into a Deathstalker Rexar. Deathstalker Rexar is going to be the number one card on his mind. He likes it, he probably goes for it. I wouldn't be surprised to maybe see him trade a couple 1-1s off to play around that, keep the 3-4. Sometimes it's better to have a taller board state than a wider, but this is much weaker in MC Tech.
If Gallon had level up in hand, I don't think he would have cared quite as much about Deathstalker Rexar.
I do agree with that.
Without level up, however, those 1-1s are not very useful right now. MC Tech here, 2 very good outcomes, 2 outcomes that are okay, but regardless, it gets something off of Gallon's side of the board, starts to develop on Saiyan's. That's very good.
That's a pretty good one. Taking the 3-4, would have rather had the Corridor Creeper, but that's the second best one. The question is, I think Saiyan commits to that every time. There's no 5-drop you would rather play. You would rather do that. I think Saiyan was just thinking about whether he wanted to commit the Terror Scale Stalker onto the open board. Now, if you're Gallon here, I'm looking at a coin, I'm looking at 6 mana, and I'm looking at a Vine Cleaver.
Burn. Gotta love that extra mana. Because now this is the payoff for Gallon. Gonna set him up for an excellent level up whenever he finds it. He's playing very defensively with this deck, but it's working out for him. He's taking pretty much all the trades he's ever offered. That Deathstalker XR, however, could really change things.
Saiyan's just gonna go ahead and tracking first, most likely gonna take that
Grizzly.
Witchwood Grizzly. There is argument for the Stitch Tracker. If you take the Stitch Tracker, you can get the Katharina and have it on curve for the following turn.
But there's no Grizzly left in the deck then. And Saiyan does have a cube in hand.
There's still a King Crush.
Yes.
And when Katharina pulls King Crush, you know where to go. You know where it's heading.
Into a 3/3 taunt.
No, into face. You go throw the 3/3 taunt. Have you seen like Jurassic World?
Face
when dinosaurs are stepping on all the people?
Yes,
That's what happens with King Crush. You just step on all the people, go straight to Lady Leodrin.
I don't have Lady Leodrin.
Neither do I.
I don't have Arthas either. I'm strictly
You just don't have the Paladin class, do you, Cora?
I'm strictly a pay-to-win hero portrait person. I do have Anoyotron. Or Sir Anoyo.
Cora, this point is just, I don't even have the Paladin class.
I don't need the Paladin class.
We're still on 10 of 20 basic cards.
2015 was a lie. I never played Paladin in my life.
Looks like Saiyan's going to hold on to this Deathstalker Rexar.
It can be better. It can be so much better.
You have potential.
You are beautiful.
I think Gallon's going to play around it too. No need to just kind of take that risk. He wants to put in that hero power every turn.
Still push the button because you have no reason not to. But here Saiyan can drop Deathstalker Rexar and make a beast in the same turn. Leaves 6 power on Gallon's side, plus that 1 charge of Vine Cleaver. Nothing he can do about that.
Also love how I was mentioning that Katharina can just pull a King Crush. And I forgot.
Lol, it's in hand.
King Crush
Whoops.
has just been in the hand the entire game. Everyone at home
You just
is
know
going,
that Twitch chat noticed
"Get him
that
off
like
the
3
desk
minutes ago.
right now.
And we're like, who's this guy? Has he ever played a tournament in his life? And then inside after this, you're just going to go, oh God, I'm washed up. I have played a tournament, Twitch chat.
Believe me, I promise.
I won them.
Unfortunately for Gallon here, he's got 2 Divine Favors. And Saiyan has got no hand right now.
That Baku's not coming out of the hand anytime soon, so these Divine Favors are...
3 mana do nothing. 3 mana, get rid of a card from your hand to try and make the other one better.
Yeah, but now Gallon is going to be able to stick these 1/1s. Unless there's a Bloat Bat or a Cave Hydra and something with Rush.
I know, I'm playing the King Crush here. I just picked up a play dead. Ah, oh, dang it, Saiyan.
I mean...
I really wanted to see that King Crush come down.
I would have liked to see some consideration given to it. Because how likely is it that Gallon kills the King Crush?
Oh, Gallon's going to do everything in his might to kill that King Crush.
I don't know. Red Band Wasp? That's got
not
Rush.
bad.
And Enrage. Wait, they took that away. It doesn't have Enrage. It doesn't exist anymore.
You're right. It does not exist anymore. That is just something that doesn't exist.
I'm living in keyword past. That Vine Cleaver pickup's huge for Gallon.
The craziest part about this is I know we can see the hand, but if Saiyan had played that King Crush, Gallon would have had to trade his entire board in to answer it if he chose to do so, and
He
if
would
he
have been
didn't,
left with a 1/1.
it just would have been game on the following turn because of cube play dead.
Saiyan maybe took that one a little bit fast.
But the issue is if you go for that line of play, and there's a level up on the other side, you're just kind of forfeiting it right then and there. However, Saiyan can go for a cube play where he tries to, cube the Red Band Wasp. Gets a little mini King Crush going on.
Very small.
Very small indeed. I would have loved to see that King Crush because it gives you that very, very tiny window. And even if Gallon were to kill it, it would be his entire board. All of it, Cora. All of those Silverhand recruits would have had to take on a giant dinosaur. So who really won there?
It's looking like Gallon. is going to win, for sure. This Crackling Razor Maw plus Vicious Scale Hide is very nice for Saiyan. He's going to be able to heal 4 and adapt the Red Band Wasp.
Oh, got the Wind Fury. That's going to be important to clear up that 3-2. I don't think this is just quite over yet. Gallon's hand is just so dead. And he has to respect this Crackling Razor Maw zombies, because if he doesn't, Cube Play Dead, Cube Terror Scale is right around the corner.
And then suddenly you have to deal with 2 additional 4/5s with Lifesteal.
On the bright side, he finally gets value out of this Divine Favor. It is now an Arcane Intellect. Raid Leader's a little bit more damage.
That is 13. Bless Maul gives +1 attack to each minion on the side of the board. So I think you probably... No, you can't ignore the Razor Maw, because Cube Play Dead's just going to heal for an additional 8.
You really can't. I think you're...
Vine Cleaver has to clear this.
I think so as well. I think Gallon's in a very prime spot, especially with how the hands have panned out. And he also has seen both Grizzlies.
Yes.
So he's not really worried about taunt or anything. He's more so worried about, you know, life gain.
This is a beast out for Saiyan here.
I mean, Bloat Bat plus Play Dead. I've seen it happen. Actually, I've seen it happen to Gallon. It wouldn't be cheap enough. I believe it'd be the first Discover, if it were any of them. The Bloat Bat, if I remember correctly, it is the first Discover.
It is always the first Discover.
That was a bit of a whiff.
That's going to be it. A 3-0 victory. Saiyan getting a taste of his own medicine, and Gallon is going to be the player with the 7-2 record moving on in the tournament. And I am pretty sure his tiebreakers are good enough to put him through to the